Strobe Studios presents Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger in The Watson Files. Coming to you from the illustrious Strobe Studios in the heart of America, this is Craig Dahlen. And now, let's join the doctor and see what story he has for us today.
Come in. Good evening, Mr. Dahlen.
Well, good evening, doctor. It's good to see you again.
And you as well.
I'm very excited to hear tonight's story.
I'm glad to hear that I haven't been boring you all this time.
There's not a single hole in me.
What?
Boring. The act or process of making or enlarging a hole.
Of course. It's funny you should mention that, actually. Tonight's story is about a geologist.
I see. Those guys really do a lot of boring.
Indeed. Well, in this case, it was more about the blasting, but I'll come back to that. Holmes and I had a free day for once and decided to take in the Natural History Museum. We were checking out a new fossil that had recently been added to the dinosaur exhibit when the curator approached us with a question. So, I can accept the reassembly of the bones to a certain degree, but how do they know what color they looked like, or if they had feathers or not?
Yes, that is an excellent question, Watson. It does seem that there is a bit of creativity involved in...
Excuse me, sir, but aren't you...
Spencer Holmes, yes, of course. It seems that we can't go anywhere without someone looking to enlist my services, Watson.
Actually, I recognized you, Dr. Watson.
Come now, Watson, even I can make a mistake from time to time.
Yes, I suppose you can.
You gave a talk here recently.
Well, yes. On my new method for properly discerning the cause of death in mummies without damaging the specimen, if memory serves. Did you have a question or something?
Well, your theory was certainly interesting, and I shared it with a friend of mine who works for Brighton Geology.
What would geologists do with a scanning machine?
Really, Watson? Have I taught you nothing?
They've been using something similar, but on a larger scale, to determine where it would be best to blast.
Obviously.
And they found a mummy?
I doubt the geologists searching in America would have found a mummy.
You are correct, Mr.
Holmes.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. They did find something rather peculiar. They're actually bringing it out of the ground today, I believe. I thought perhaps you would like to be present, Doctor, since you are pretty much responsible for the discovery.
Wouldn't they have found it while they were digging anyway?
No, actually. They had just been blasting away rock walls before. When they saw the anomaly on the display, they took precautions so as not to disturb the object.
That does sound interesting.
Here's the address. I'll phone my friend John Montague and let him know that you're coming. You're welcome to go along as well, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, sir.
Hello?
Oh, you must be Dr. Watson and Mr. Holmes.
That's right. I understand you have something to show us.
Yes, we were just about to take the thing out when Eli called to say that you were coming.
What have you found?
It seems to be some sort of a small box with interesting markings on it.
What makes you think that it's of any significance?
The equipment indicates that the composition of the box is different from the surrounding rock. It might even be gold.
As long as it isn't a board game, we'll be fine.
We should get outside. Every minute we're not blasting is money lost.
Well, let's have a look then.
All right, boys, bring it out.
Here you go, boss.
Thanks, Hank.
It does appear to be gold.
These are some interesting symbols around the outside.
Can you open it?
Hold it right there.
Who are you?
I'm Aziz Masri from the United States branch of the Supreme Council of Antiquities.
What does the SCA have to do with this?
We believe that the item you are holding is an antiquity that was removed from Egypt without license.
Interesting. But first we'll have a look in the box now, if you please.
You will not. I have an order here that demands that the artifact be turned over to me. If we determine that this is not an Egyptian artifact, then it will be returned to your company.
Let me have a look at that. Everything does seem to be in order, but I think we'll come along with you if you don't mind.
The utmost care will be taken. A representative of the company will not be required.
I do not work for the mining company. I'm Spencer Holmes, and this is my associate, Dr. Jack Watson. We're consultants who frequently work with the police, actually.
I see. And are you presently working with the authorities?
We are indeed engaged in a case presently. So, shall we follow you in our car?
Mr. Holmes, you will not be coming with me. You must, as my order indicates, turn the box over to me and I will return it if we are able.
On the contrary, sir. Your order dictates that the box be turned over unopened to the SCA. We will gladly do so in person.
I see. And there is no way that I can convince you?
None whatsoever. Which brings me back to my question. Shall we follow you to the airport? I assume you have a jet or some other air transport waiting?
No. You should probably ride with me.
Excellent. I have not been to the Egyptian consulate for several months. I've been meaning to stop by and say hello to Ms. Scobie.
Wait a moment. I'll have to clear handing this over to you with our managers.
That will not be necessary, Mr. Montague. I have reviewed the order and everything seems to be legitimate. When we have convinced the Egyptians that this is not one of their antiquities, we'll return with the box.
Besides, you don't really have a choice unless you want to be the cause of an international incident.
Don't worry, Mr. Montague. Spencer will see that you get your box back.
I guess if I don't have a choice, then I don't have a choice. Let me know when you get a look inside.
Indeed we shall.
Can I get you gentlemen anything?
When will we be landing in Washington?
Around 12:30 p.m. local time?
I imagine you have tahini.
Yes, we do, sir. Would you like some?
That sounds delightful. Perhaps a few crackers as well.
Yes, I'm sure that will be just fine.
Watson, have you ever had this stuff? It's delicious.
I tried it once when I was on a brief sojourn up to Cairo from Zimbabwe. You do remember my trip to Zimbabwe, do you not?
I think you might have mentioned it once. Ah, Aziz, welcome back. I wanted to have a word with you.
We should be arriving soon.
That's good. I'm starting to get hungry.
Yes, the stewardess said she was preparing something at your request. Perhaps you can save your questions for my superiors?
Most of them, yes, but perhaps, Mr. Masri, you can tell us what is inside the box that is so important.
I am afraid that I cannot provide you with that information.
Why the big secret?
I do not know, Dr. Watson. I am only the person designated to retrieve the artifact and bring it back to the consulate.
Here you are, gentlemen.
Thank you.
This is somewhat close to the tahini I had at the consulate. I think perhaps that there was something wrong with this batch of sesame seeds, though.
Maybe I'll wait until we land to get some lunch then.
There may not be time, Doctor. You should have some. I'd consider it a personal favor.
Watson, I'm not so sure you
Holmes?
eat the...
What did you do to him?
It is only a slight sedative. If you had taken yours as well, we would not be in this awkward position. Now, Doctor, if you'll just have a cracker, please. Gerald, get in here.
Yes, sir.
Show Mr. Holmes to the door.
What? You can't be serious. Just take the box and leave it
Sit
somewhere.
down, Dr. Watson. Gerald, the door. Make sure you take the box from his jacket pocket first.
Of course.
What happened? Why is the door... Hey, wait! No!
Where did you get a gun?
Whoa, hold on a minute.
Get to the cockpit. Tell the pilot to take us to the nearest airport. Now.
Yes, right away. Just please don't shoot me.
Just go.
One of your bullets killed the pilot.
How are we still flying?
The autopilot is engaged.
Are there any parachutes?
I think,
We don't really have a lot of time here.
Yes, here.
Did you know who those people were?
No, I I came from the temp agency.
Fine. Give me that box on the floor by Gerald, and then put on one of those and let's go. Yes, that's right. There is a plane that is flying unmanned toward Washington.
I'm not even going to ask how you're involved. How is it still flying?
It's on autopilot now, but I don't know if it has enough fuel to get it out over the ocean.
All right, Doctor. I guess I'll see what I can do.
There is one other thing. We made it to the ground, but I don't know where we are.
I'll see if the D.C. police can send a helicopter out to pick you and Holmes up.
What? No, it's just the stewardess and myself.
The unmanned plane isn't Holmes's fault.
They threw him out of the plane without a parachute, Max.
What?
I'm afraid that it's true. I'm quite certain he couldn't have survived the fall.
I'm sorry, Jack. We may have occasionally had our differences, but a lot of criminals would have gone unpunished without him.
Yes. Can you just send someone to pick us up? We'll be close to where we landed, I think.
What do you mean you think?
There's something I have to try to do. I'll talk with you again when I get back.
All right, Jack. We'll see you soon.
Where are we going?
I think that we flew for about 2 minutes after they closed the door.
Yes, but why are we leaving the landing area? Isn't there rescue coming?
And the plane would have been going somewhere between 500 and 600 miles per hour.
Are you even hearing
So that
me?
means that we're probably traveled between 24 and 30 miles. No, you're right. We'll have to wait for the helicopter. We have to find the body. It'll be somewhere between 25 and 30 miles from where we started.
We're coming up on that range now. We'll see what we can do, sir, but no promises. I'm supposed to be taking you back to D.C.
I appreciate the consideration.
Wait, is that him?
The man limping? It can't be. Wait. I don't believe it. Take us down.
It's about time you showed up, Watson. I was starting to think that I'd have to walk all the way on my own.
But how did you...
I assure you I was surprised as you are now when I discovered that I was still alive. I'm afraid I broke my arm, though, and I'm going to need a few stitches. More important matters first, Watson. Aziz is a criminal and on the take for smugglers of antiquities. We can't let him get his hands on whatever it is in that box.
I shot him.
What?
I wasn't about to suffer the same fate as yourself. And I have the box right here.
Oh. All right, then. Since you've done such a good job, I suppose I can humor your curiosity. Look up and see my savior.
I don't see anything.
That's such a shame, Watson. What about the high-tension wires there?
I see them, but what does that
I
have?
bounced off of them and landed in a rather uncomfortable mass of bushes.
Really? That's amazing.
And you didn't get electrocuted?
No, he wasn't grounded.
Yes, it's much like the birds that land on power lines. As long as you aren't touching the ground, you don't get shocked.
That's amazing.
I do not believe that I should like to try it again, but I suppose it is worth experiencing once.
I really thought that you were a goner.
I'm afraid that you'll have to put up with me for a bit longer, Watson. Now, if your friends here can wait a moment longer, perhaps we can discover what is in the box that was worth killing me for.
Certainly. What is this?
It looks like a rather large sapphire.
But how did it end up in the mine?
It was probably part of a larger cache of stolen antiquities that was left behind by mistake.
But how did Aziz know to come looking for it?
The Egyptians keep careful track of their antiquities. I'm sure that the folks at the Egyptian consulate were well aware that this item was unrecovered after a theft. When Mr. Montague's men discovered the object, the first thing they did was to tell quite a number of people.
How do you know that he told people?
Quite simple, Jack. Recall that imbecilic curator at the National History Museum. He was well aware of the object's discovery. There was little cause for Mr. Montague to share the discovery with him.
Except that he shared my scanning methods with the geologist.
Yes, and I would be inclined to think that he were somehow involved with the theft of this box if it were not for his lacking in mental acumen.
He's a curator at a natural history museum. I doubt he is daft.
On the contrary, Watson, he didn't know me by name.
Holmes, just because someone doesn't know who you are doesn't mean that they are automatically stupid.
An interesting point of view. I suspect, however, that we will find that the Egyptian consulate was notified by the curator. He likely shared the images captured by the scanning equipment with them.
And Aziz was on the inside and came across the information and quickly concocted a story to steal the artifact for himself.
Quite right, Watson. Now, I think perhaps we should visit the hospital before making our way back to the Egyptian consulate. They will be pleased to have their property returned to them.
Indeed.
That's quite the story, Doctor. I'm impressed that Holmes was able to survive the fall from the airplane.
Well, if anyone could manage that impossible task, it would be Holmes.
I guess you're right. At least he only had minor injuries.
Yes, the doctors were able to put him back in proper crime-fighting order without delay, and the Egyptian consulate was very pleased to have their sapphire back.
I'm sure they were. So what story will you be telling us next week?
Well, next week happens to be Easter, and so I believe we will be taking the week off. And when we return, I'll tell you about a man who managed to kill his victims without ever even meeting them.
That sounds very interesting. Well, I hope you have a good Easter, and don't eat too much candy.
Oh, you know I will.
Yeah. Tonight's Watson Files adventure was written by Michael Helgens and directed by Scott Strosahl. Spencer Holmes and Dr. Watson were played by Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger. Additional voices were performed by Steve Rimpici and Stacie Frede. Until next week, this is Craig Dahlen saying good night from Strobe Studios.
How are we still flying? Because apparently if the pilot's dead, the plane immediately crashes.
Exactly.
Well, Watson isn't thinking clearly because Holmes just got killed.
Are you kidding? There's 10 more pages. He's not dead.